April 1945. Western Germany, a rear processing center near the town of Bad Nauheim. The war was 4 weeks from ending. German units were surrendering in waves now, faster than the Americans could catalog them. Forward checkpoints were overwhelmed. Soldiers were being searched fast, marched onto trucks, and shipped to rear centers for proper intake. That meant some of them slipped through the first screening with things they should not have had. Captain Daniel Holcomb was running the rear center that morning. Ohio, 31 years old, quiet voice, steady hands. He had processed nearly 6,000 prisoners since February. He thought he had seen everything the war could put in front of him. He was wrong. General Patton arrived at the center just after 10 in the morning. Unannounced, he did this often now. He walked the rows of prisoners himself, looking at faces, at posture, at hands. He said it told him things no report ever could. That was when Patton stopped walking. 3/4 of the way down the second row, he had seen something glinting against gray wool, around the neck of one of the prisoners. Metal. Catching the light through the open hangar doors, Patton did not move closer at first. He stood very still. Holcomb noticed and walked toward him. "Captain," Patton said. He did not look away from the prisoner. "Bring me whoever processed this man at the forward post." "I cannot, sir. He came in on a mass intake yesterday. The forward post had 4 men running screening for 200 prisoners an hour." Patton nodded slowly. He had expected that answer. Now he walked closer. Around the prisoner's neck was a chain, crude, hand-twisted wire. Hanging from it were small, flat pieces of metal, stamped, notched, American. Patton counted the rows of them, in his head, without moving his lips. 50. 50 American dog tags. 50 names. 50 service numbers. 50 next of kin somewhere across the Atlantic who had been told their son was missing. The German prisoner was looking back at him. Late 20s, tall, pale, the Totenkopf insignia still stitched to his collar where it had not yet been cut away. His face showed nothing, not pride, not fear, not regret, just the flat patience of a man who believed he was about to be released. Before we go any further into what Patton did next, take a moment to subscribe. What you are about to hear is one of the reasons men remembered General Patton long after the war ended. We tell these stories because they should not be forgotten. Patton did not raise his voice. He never did, on the days that mattered most. "Captain Holcomb," he said, "I want a translator, I want an intelligence officer, and I want a clipboard." Holcomb moved. Within 4 minutes, 3 men were standing in the hangar with Patton. Lieutenant Gerald Pace, Intelligence. Private First Class, Stephen Brower, a translator born in Milwaukee to German parents. And Sergeant Owen Reyes, who had brought the clipboard. None of them had been told what they were walking into. When Pace saw the chain around the prisoner's neck, his hand went to his mouth. Brower looked, then looked at the floor, then looked again. Reyes did not look away. He stared. "Sir," Reyes said, "are those what I think they are?" "Yes, Sergeant. All of them. All of them." Patton turned to Brower. "Ask his name, rank, unit." Brower spoke in German. The prisoner answered in a flat voice. "Hauptsturmführer Erhard Vollmer," Brower said. "3rd SS Panzer Division, Totenkopf." The Totenkopf Division. The Death's Head. The unit that had run camp guard duty before the war turned, and they were thrown into the line as combat troops. Patton's jaw moved once. "Ask him where he got the tags," Brower translated. Vollmer answered with a small movement of his shoulders. Brower hesitated before he translated back. "He says he took them, sir, from the dead. All 50. He says, yes, sir. All 50. Ask him why." Brower asked. Vollmer answered for a long moment this time. When Brower translated, his voice was lower than before. "He says they were proof, sir. He says each one was a soldier he killed himself. He says he wore them so his men would know what kind of officer he was." The hangar had gone quiet. Other Americans had stopped working. A clerk had set down a stack of forms. A medic standing near the door had turned to face them. Even the other prisoners in the row had gone still, watching. Patton stepped 1 pace closer. Now he was close enough that Vollmer could not look anywhere except at his face. "Lieutenant Pace, sir, I want every tag photographed before it leaves that chain. I want each one numbered. I want a notebook entry for each one with the name, the service number, and the religion stamped on it. Yes, sir. And I want the next of kin file pulled for every single name. I want to know what we told their families and when. Sir, that is going to take days. Take days. Patton turned back to Brower. Translate the next thing exactly as I say it. Brower nodded. Yes, sir. Patton looked at Vollmer. He did not raise his voice. He spoke as if he were giving a man directions to a town. You are going to take that chain off your neck. You are going to lay it flat on the table behind me. You are going to do it now. You will do it without speaking. And when you are done, you will step back 2 paces and put your hands at your sides. Brower translated. Vollmer did not move. He said one word in German. 9. Brower did not need to translate it. Patton waited 4 seconds. He looked at Sergeant Reyes. He looked at the 2 MPs who had drifted toward the scene from the door. He did not nod. He did not gesture. He simply looked at them, and they understood. The MPs moved. They took Vollmer by both arms, without violence and without gentleness. Reyes stepped behind him and unhooked the wire chain at the back of his neck with 2 fingers. The chain came away whole. He laid it flat on the table. 50 pieces of metal made a soft sound against the wood, like rain on a roof for half a second, and then nothing. Vollmer was breathing harder now. He had not expected this. He had expected an officer who would shout at him. Patton did not shout. He turned to the table and looked down at the chain. He read names. He read them silently, his lips moving slightly. After a long moment, he put 1 finger on a single tag near the end of the chain. Sergeant Reyes? Sir, read this name to me. Reyes leaned over the table. Private First Class Earl T. Murray, sir. Service number stamped clean. Catholic. Patton nodded once. Pace. I want this name pulled first. I want to know everything we already told his mother. Yes, sir. Then Patton turned back to Vollmer. He spoke quietly. Brower translated each line as it came. You believed those men were yours because you took something from them after they were dead. You were wrong. Each piece of metal on that table belongs to a woman in a kitchen in Ohio or Texas or Pennsylvania who has not slept a full night since the telegram came. Each one is going home. You are not. Vollmer's mouth opened. He started to speak. Patton held up one hand and Vollmer stopped. You are going to a cell. You are going to sit there, and you are going to wait. While you wait, men I trust will spend weeks finding out exactly how each of those soldiers died. If they died with rifles in their hands, you will be tried as a soldier. If they died any other way, you will be tried as something else. You will not see daylight again until you are walked to a courtroom. That is what I have to say to you. He turned away from Vollmer before Brower had finished translating the last sentence. Vollmer was led out of the hangar between the 2 MPs. He did not resist, but on his face, for the first time, was something that had not been there at the start. Doubt. The investigation took 6 weeks. Lieutenant Pace did not sleep more than 4 hours a night for any of them. He had a war room set up at the rear center, with 50 index cards pinned to a wall. Each card carried a name. Each card waited for a story. The teams worked backwards from the tags. They cross-referenced unit histories, casualty reports, dates of last contact, locations of last known engagement. They interviewed survivors from the units the dead men had served in. They walked through field hospital records that had not been touched since they were boxed and shipped from France. What they found was worse than what Patton had said in the hangar. Of the 50 men whose tags Vollmer had worn, only 14 had died in combat. 14 had been killed with rifles in their hands, fighting forward the way Vollmer had wanted to claim all 50. The other 36 had died in ways Vollmer had not described. 8 had been wounded prisoners, executed against a stone wall in a Belgian village in January. 6 had been litter cases shot in their stretchers when a forward field hospital was overrun. 4 had been waving white cloth when they were cut down. 2 had been chaplains. The remaining 16 had died in circumstances the investigators could establish only partially. Most were prisoners. Most were unarmed. When Pace walked into Patton's office with the report, he laid it on the desk and did not sit down. Sir, 14 of them, only 14. Patton read the cover sheet. He did not speak for a long time. Then he stood up and walked to the window. Pace, sit down. Sir, I am going to dictate 50 letters. Sir, the adjutant office can write a form letter and I can have them ready by Friday. No. Patton turned from the window. 50 letters, 50 names. I will dictate each one. I will sign each one by hand. They will not say the same thing because the men did not die the same way, and the women who get them did not lose the same son. Pace looked at him. Sir, that will take you a week. You have command obligations. I have a command obligation right now. Get me a stenographer. The stenographer was brought. Patton dictated for 3 days. He did not delegate a single line. He stopped between letters, sometimes for 10 or 15 minutes, walking the length of the room with one hand on the back of his neck. He told one mother her son had died trying to drag a wounded friend behind cover. He told another that her son had been executed against a wall, and that he was sorry, and that the man who did it would not walk free. He told a wife in Pennsylvania that her husband had been a chaplain, unarmed, and that the army would tell her nothing it did not know to be true. Each letter went into an envelope with the dog tag of the man it was about. Patton signed every envelope across the seal. He told Pace that no one was to touch them in transit. He told Pace that if a letter came back undeliverable, he wanted to know personally. 3 came back. He had the next of kin retraced through county records and found 2 of the 3 families inside a month. The third was never found. That tag is in a cabinet at West Point now, with a card that lists what was known. Erhard Vollmer was charged the following year. He was tried, convicted of 41 of the 50 deaths, and executed in 1948. He did not speak from the dock. The mother of Earl T. Murray, the name Patton had read aloud first that morning in the hangar, kept her son's letter on the mantel of her kitchen for the rest of her life. She told a county historian, decades later, that for months after the telegram she had not known whether her son had died well. That word mattered to her. When the letter came, it told her he had died well. She said she did not know if it was true. She said she chose to believe a general would not lie to a mother. Sergeant Owen Reyes, the man who had laid the chain on the table that morning, was asked about Patton 30 years later by a writer working on a book about the war. He thought for a long time before he answered. He didn't yell that day. People always think Patton yelled. He didn't yell. He just got quieter and quieter until you understood that the loudest thing in the room was him not yelling. He looked at those tags like they were men, not metal, men. That was the day I figured out what kind of officer he was. Reyes paused. He fought for the ones who could still hold a rifle, but he fought just as hard for the ones who couldn't. That was the day Patton stopped a war for 50 men. If you knew the name of one of those soldiers, what would you want his mother to be told? Tell us in the comments below. And if you want more stories about the men who shaped the war, subscribe to the channel. We tell these stories so the names do not disappear.